Hello. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm
We're
good.
live now, I believe, if everything's working. It's been 2 weeks, so I'm out of practice. But thank you very much for joining. It's much appreciated. Another Thursday evening or morning or afternoon chat, depending on where people are located in the world. We can start
Yeah.
if you want to introduce yourself, and then
Yes.
we'll take it from there. Sound good?
Uh-huh. Cool. So, I'm Kamasani. For the people who could say my full name, it's Prathyusha Kamasani. I work at Avanad as a group manager, a consultant, and yeah, what else? Like I work with Power BI. I organize London Power BI user group along with
I
James Dale.
saw that. Very
Yeah,
impressive.
I blog, I speak. I did dip my toes into YouTube.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, but I
Very
don't
cool.
think I'm really keeping up with it. Pandemic definitely impacted on my blogging and stuff, but
Fair enough. Yeah.
hopefully it's gonna come back. So yeah, that's pretty much about me.
I think it sounds like you already do quite a lot. So the YouTube and on top of that it's a lot to keep up with for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
As someone who primarily or pretty much only YouTubes, it's doing that on itself is quite a lot. So
it
yeah.
is, isn't it? I think I am also really bad self-critic. So I've actually recorded quite a few things, but I was not happy to put them out there.
Yeah,
So
I can understand that. The number of things I've recorded and then I don't like it, I'm gonna record it again and it just like creeps into your
yeah,
week. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
I think I wish there was no editing softwares. I know they're amazing, but like for me, it's because the softwares are there. I wanted to edit everything,
Yeah.
and then I don't
I
like anything.
I
So,
started recording my screen and then recording myself afterwards. So I'll like watch it and I'll do it and then I'll record it because I can't type and talk. I can't any level of multitasking is completely beyond me. So I just stopped. But I'm really interested. You did the London Power BI user group. I find quite cool because first of all, I mean, for organizing a user group all sounds quite difficult to me. And also London. I mean, that's quite a prestigious and also very large city.
yeah.
What's your experience of that? Because it's quite interesting, I think.
It was it's funny. Like so, I went to Sequel Pass like a few
Okay.
years ago, and I happened to be we are in the same plane with Chris Webb,
Okay.
and so I actually so that Sequel Pass is when they announced the Power BI user groups the very first time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's when I asked Chris, it's like if he wants to start a user group with me. He
Mm.
said like I could speak. I will come and speak whenever you want a speaker, but like I don't think I can do it. And
Yeah.
that's when like I anyway thought, okay, this is the only way I could keep up with the Power BI
Mm.
updates. So that's how it all started in the beginning. And there was few others who were also interested. So the team behind the Power BI user group, they put us together, and
Mm-hmm.
over the time they started their own things, and like I kind of started carried on.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point I was like I needed help, and
Yeah,
James
of course.
Wales was like even though he was not an organizer,
Mm.
he was anyway helping me quite a few times.
Nice.
So that's when, and James is somebody, he's
Mm.
like a very good friend of me, so
Nice.
I asked him, and he was very happy to be part of it, and yeah, he helps. He takes a lot of burden of it too, so that
Very
makes it
kind
a
of
little
him.
easy.
And how was it pandemic wise? Was it okay to keep going, just to switch to online
Yeah,
or?
actually, pandemic helped us in a way, is like because it made us to reach more,
Yeah.
and it was also very nice to get to different speakers. I mean, we always
Mm.
been very lucky being in London. That was a good thing. We had the best sponsor I could ask for. It's a recruitment agent.
I saw that. I was really impressed, I gotta say.
Yeah, and Nigel Frank, they
Yeah.
are amazing. Like the people at Nigel Frank they were like the most helpful people,
Fantastic.
and the speakers were as well. Like we were just lucky. Like as I mentioned, Chris Webb and Marco Alberto. They used to come to London for their trainings, and the people who come for sequel bits. Like everyone was actually.
Yeah.
I think I was just lucky. in many cases.
I mean, maybe luck might be an element, but the hard work that you put in, I'm sure. Give
Yeah,
yourself some credit, mate. Come on.
yeah. I think. I did things. I was nice. I think. Yeah, maybe because I had friends as well. Me being a speaker itself, I get a chance to ask people when I see
Sure.
them, and they cannot really say no on your face. So
When you're networking, right? Yeah, fair
yeah,
enough.
exactly.
I
That's
mean, when you're doing the in-person talking, I can imagine being the Power BI group for London. It's a nice place to travel to, right? It's like you go to London, not like, I don't know, I don't want to insult any other places in the world, but like a small town somewhere that doesn't really have,
yeah.
as much things to do and to see, and it's a tourist destination basically.
Yes, yeah, totally. And also there's quite a lot of demand of Power BI, so there's
Yeah,
always many people using it.
yeah,
Having said that, it's like we do have a really nice group of people that keep come
mm,
to the user group. I'm like I met many people through the user group who became really good friends of me in my life, and
nice.
yeah. So for example, James Dales, I met him through the user group, and now he's like a very good friend of me.
That's
And
cool.
so yeah, not only James, like there's so many people, Chris Barber is like one of the attendee who used to be, and now we work together. There's like many people I
That's
met
cool.
through
Yeah.
user group.
This is I mean, I've been my activity pretty much started with pandemic, and I can't even remember anymore if that's coincidence or that's the reason, It's because I was just sitting at home and like, okay, I can go to everything now. For example, I realized the other day that I get so many more emails now because of the meetup. You get the automated emails, and I became a member of quite a few different user groups, like Vancouver and Sweden and so a couple others in the US, simply because I can,
Yeah.
instead of just being just that one on your doorstep. We have a nice user group in Berlin too, but Berlin's a strange capital city for me sometimes because it doesn't have that. It's become better in recent years, but it's not like that massive hub of technology, or it's more like a hub of partying or something. You know what I mean?
That's what I could think of. I mean, they guess Berlin is a great city, but
It
I
is.
understand what you mean.
Yeah.
For example, if you take Amsterdam, it's different, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's a connection to many other cities.
Right.
I think the same thing with the Dublin or London. I think London was also same thing. It's a connection to many other cities, so that's why it's a bit different.
Yeah, like a hub city. That makes sense.
Yeah.
If I just go off on a completely random subject now, Wellington is obviously yeah, okay, I like it. Regarding Power BI and the journeys, this is always one of the things I ask quite often. Your journey into Power BI, how did you end up there? Did you have a large background of working with data, different systems, or how did that go? I'm curious. I'm always curious about this.
So my journey into Power BI was pretty natural because I was working with the data warehousing.
Okay.
I was a BI developer before that, so I was
Okay.
doing a lot of SSIS, SSRS, SSAS, and it was pretty natural. The people who have been working with the analysis services, you kind of fall into Power BI. So that's how I kind of fell into it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, it was
So
probably one of
it's your background basically. So it's how it ended up.
yeah. I mean, because I knew Power BI was I was. This makes me feel old, but I know when there was Power View. I don't know if there was this data Zen. I don't know if any in audience. I wonder if anyone remember it. I think it was called Data Zen. Microsoft acquired this software,
I don't know
yeah, I remember Power View. There was like a Power Map or Geo Map, something. As it's supposed to be like a plugins in Excel. I remember playing with them.
Yeah.
So once you know them, Power BI is like a.
I didn't actually know about Power View until after I'd used Power BI, and then I was clicking right, because my path was very, oh, what's this thing? Oh, this is Power Query. What's this other thing? Oh, this is Power BI. And then I was just clicking around and stuff. And then I saw Power View and I was like, well, this is rubbish. Don't like it. you know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but like when it came, it was amazing. Like,
Of
you know,
course.
you could export into PowerPoint. That was the best thing about Power View for me then.
Yeah,
It's like you could export the entire report into PowerPoint.
yeah.
And I think there was still interaction even after you exported into PowerPoint. I don't remember it that well. And then there was map. You could create this horrible looking map, but in Excel.
Do you know what you've just reminded me of? And I can't remember the name of the tool, but I hate it with a passion that burns pretty deeply in my soul. There was an add-on, I think, in PowerPoint where you could link to Excel data, right? And I used to create reports like financial, like month-end reports, like for presentations, and you would basically link visualizations in PowerPoint to the data in Excel, and it always broke. Like it was just the bane of my life every month, clicking on it and then clicking the refresh. Oh, why isn't it refreshing? Honestly, I hated that so very much. I really,
I think I know what you talk. I think you could use Excel as a source under
yeah, I can't
the
remember.
charts in the PowerPoint. I mean, since somebody doing, I've never done it. So, but yeah,
Yeah, I do not miss that at all.
yeah,
But this is a long way because I read when you were a child, you wanted to think cell.
think so.
Oh
Okay.
my, thank you. Sorry, it's just Burnett's just said it right now. Think cell. That was it. I hate think cell. This is what I hate. It's nice to have a name to something that I hate. So thank you, Bernett. I really hated that program. You wanted to be a pilot when you were younger, right?
Oh yeah, it was.
I've just been reading your blog, you know.
Yeah, so this was so growing up. So my mom as a teacher,
Okay.
and she was a head teacher, and my dad. So they both were like very encouraged in reading newspapers. So we used to get like three types of newspapers at home.
Okay, nice.
It's like a so because my dad believed in one newspaper and my mom wanted us to read English newspaper, and then there was the A newspaper that everyone read. So in there used to be a column where they talk about women, and this was like a very long time ago. I read an article about the first woman pilot in India,
Okay.
and that's when I thought, okay, I want to be a pilot. But
Cool.
it didn't go that
No,
far. Somebody
yeah.
I don't know what happened. I think somebody told me I was not enough height to be it. I mean, like I didn't even try or anything, but that was one thing they said. And they also said they really care about English. And I was really horrible at speaking English. So
Fair
so
enough.
the
So
dream lasted for a very short time.
that industry lost, but the data industry we gained, so it's okay, right? It balanced it out in favor of us. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, there's actually when I was a kid, I was the first thing I remember really wanting to be in the police, which is pretty. I'm not sure if that's really. It's pretty standard, I suppose. But I'm very pleased I did not follow that career path, to be honest. And it reminds me of my dad because when my dad was a kid, he tells me this a few times. He did like in school you do like career advice and stuff. And this career advisor said to my dad, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And my dad said, "I'm just thinking of getting into computers because it seems like my dad was obviously this was back in the whatever I don't know 60s probably, and I'd like to get into computers because it seems like there's a good future there." And the response to this person was, "Yeah, there's no future in computers. You should join the police force instead." So, he did not, by the way. And
Yeah.
no, that was like
Wow.
it might go down as the worst career advice ever given. So yeah, no future in computers.
Yeah.
Ah, man.
Well, things has changed a lot.
Yeah, hopefully career advice has also improved as well. I'm not sure.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, I've got a comment talking about the good features that exist in Power BI that still haven't reached Power BI. There's good features in Power BI that still haven't reached Power BI. What are those features? Do you know what they are? I'm very curious about this.
Oh wow, I don't actually remember
Yeah.
Power View that well. Well, there might be some which hasn't
Oh, the
came
will for
to
sure.
Power BI, but Power View doesn't exist for a reason. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's probably something to do with Matrix or some kind of, I'm not sure, a mapping tool or something. If someone knows what these good features are that haven't reached Power BI, I'd be very curious because I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know, but I'm sure it's one of these things that you've used and you get used to it, and then you move to a new tool and just like when you move from Excel to Power BI, and people assume that Power BI is just kind of exactly the same as Excel, but like better.
Yes, exactly.
And it's
I think Power BI died because Microsoft chose to kill it. Because, well, not kill it. It's like they created Power BI. So by
it
combining all these tools, isn't it?
exactly at the Power View and of
Yeah.
course Power Query and Power Pivot, of course, and maybe there's
Yeah.
another thing. I'm not sure. Yeah, we've got a question from Jeff. You're interested in
Oh.
database. Was there a book that got you started or a blog? What
Oh, how I
ignited that passion?
started. I don't know if there was a book or a blog that actually made me start. I think it was so I it's just something that makes me really excited. I'm passionate about the things. I mean, I do a bit of painting, so I'm a
Ah,
self-taught painter, and
okay,
I've done it like since I was a kid. Like when I see something I like,
that's nice.
yeah, doing it. And I was like, I swear, like as I said, my mom was a head teacher, so for
Mm,
every like a new year or a birthday, things like that, she used to get a lot of cards, like,
mm.
wishing greeting cards. And afterwards I used to cut all those cards and make a display kind of thingy. So I used to keep things together, find patterns. And so this was, I think that's where it started. I didn't know I'm going to be a data visualization expert or a person
Yeah,
over the time. But yeah, I think that's where it started. But for Jeff, if you asking me for a book, I would recommend Design Thinking. Dan Norman, Design Thinking book. I'm just looking around me. It's usually always around me. Yeah, The Design of Everyday Things by
the,
Dan
des-
Norman. It's a really, really, really good book.
the design of everyday things. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds cool.
By Dan Norman. He doesn't talk about data visualization, but
Mm,
he talks about design. And it's
interesting.
like there is a thing called Norman door concept. So basically what he talks about is like so how you open a door.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure many of us done it, like instead of pulling, we push, or we so but like if the door needs to be pushed, why do
Mm.
you keep a handle there?
Okay,
So that's the design.
that's
That's
interesting.
yeah, it's really simple when you think about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
I like it.
yeah, he talks about things like that. It makes you
Mm.
really think about design.
Cool. It's interesting that I remember speaking to Kerry Kolosko a good few months ago, and I noticed that she also into visualization and
Hmm.
beautiful, and also she's a very artistic person as well. So this element of, I mean, I'm just not. I like art, but I once dated someone, and she described my artistic skills as worryingly childlike, and I can't argue because it's completely true. I haven't got an artistic bone in my body, so it's a nice thing. Or it's one of those things when you don't have that skill, you kind of admire it in other people, of course,
Hmm. Yeah.
That's really cool. But
Yeah.
it's also interesting because you mentioned that you'd working with data warehousing and stuff, right? And then it's interesting to me that it's the same, industry, but I would suggest that having that artistic flair for visualization in a data warehousing person, that's quite interesting.
Oh, yeah. I think it's kind of true, but I think, as I said, like I use even then before as well. It's like I've done quite a bit of SSRS, even though
Mm,
you cannot really get creative in SSRS other than some conditional formatting and stuff like that. But I feel like this element is everywhere. Like
mm,
even when you're creating data warehousing, like you cannot just create data warehouse. You need to know what the end user want to see, and that's how you create the dimensional modeling. So I think that's how the design drives from the
Yeah.
end user story. So I think that is what makes me think about these end reports. And then my personal art and my personal color interest and things like that is kind of, it helps me to do something different.
Yeah.
I think so. I always say when I was speaking in the conferences and things that one of my motto is a steal like an artist. So it's I take very nicely, I would say, it's I see a nice report, whatever it is, and I immediately think of it. Oh, can I do that in Power BI?
Mm. Mm.
And that makes me learn more,
Yeah,
because
for
it
sure.
kind of helps me to learn, and also it's kind of a bit of challenge to
Yes.
give myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Having a personal challenge is always very, very good.
Yeah.
But I have never ever heard anyone, I could be wrong, describe data warehousing in quite like you just described it, like it's an art form, like the beautification of the model. Or this is actually really interesting. I never ever considered that, and I just have this idea of that when you're picturing the end product and how it should be, have this image of it. I mean, for me, it's just kind of like tables, relationships. But I imagine from you, you see, it's a much more beautiful and I'm not sure. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's more like a, how do you say it? You bringing products and sales
Mm.
because somebody wants to see them together, and how can you do it together? And yeah, it's like a storytelling
Yeah,
element is what
absolutely.
drives. I think
You've
that's what drives the good Power BI model as well. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, when you
You've you've
understand the
you've
story.
you've changed my perspective a little bit there, or at least give me a new way to look at it. I quite like that. I'll
Good.
um I'll I'll try to. I can't do that side of the job, but when I think about that side of the job, I'll have that in mind. Yeah. Oh, very cool. And so I read before that you're not an independent contractor anymore. You are or you're not?
I was,
You
no, not
were.
anymore. Now I
Right.
work with Avanade.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the reason I brought that up is because I've never also I like discussing things about things I've never done, because obviously it's interesting to say that. I've never worked as an independent contractor. And
Mhm.
that's obviously got lots of very different challenges for the way I've worked. I always have, like one client as in the company or different stakeholders. But I mean, it's maybe a bit of an unfair question asking you what you prefer, because that's maybe if someone's listening for your job, they wouldn't like that. But what are the key differences? What are the pros or the cons? What's the feel? Is it nice to get away from contract, or the elements that you miss?
Um, like a somebody Bernard saying, Avanade is like a cool kids company. It's true. We have a really good team, and
Yeah.
I
Okay.
do love my team. Um, it's also I think if I have to say, do I miss contracting? Yes, I do. Do
Okay.
I miss like the whole freelancing bit? Yes, I do miss it.
Mm,
But but I also in a place where it's pretty nice. I don't have to
mm,
really miss it,
mm,
because I worked with the same company before I became a contractor. I worked with Altius as a
okay.
contractor.
Okay.
I mean, Altius was my last contract, and then I decided, okay, this is probably a company where I can become a permanent. And also there was my life changed quite a lot at
Mm,
that time, so I needed a bit more permanent role than
mm,
the contracting. So that is what it is. It's like a with the being the contractor, it's a I had freedom, but the freedom came with stress. It's you don't know when you may not have a job, but for example, if I have, if I don't for example, pandemic is a good example. It's if I was a contractor, I was not sure if I had a job, at least in the initial stages. Having said that,
mm,
I never was in the situation where I didn't have a job, but I
mm,
was definitely stressed about it.
mm,
Being in the permanent, it gives me different opportunities,
mm,
so like many people know Avanad as a company who have, as somebody said, like with cool kids, and they provide a lot of training and things like that. But since I joined, became permanent, I was more focused on the leadership skills.
Okay.
Like, so
Nice.
that I never ever considered being a freelancer. And I do enjoy like when somebody within the team comes to me asking like, oh Prathi, how can you do this and things like that. It's when I make it, it's gives me a bit of pleasure. Like I was at SQL Bits a few months ago, and first time I attended SQL Bits as a employee of a company than independent, and it gave me a lot of I felt like I had a lot of responsibility. Like I wanted to make sure my team has fun and all those things. Especially, so there was quite a few people who came to SQL Bit first time. So it suddenly gives you that kind of a feel of being in a team and the warmth and stuff like that.
Sure.
You don't feel alone.
Understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, like, the pros and cons.
There's no right or wrong answer. I was just curious
Of course,
of your opinion.
but
Yeah.
that's my view on it. But like, there are things like, I could take as many holidays as I want being a contractor.
Of course.
I could go to any conference. I don't need to ask anyone's permission.
Yeah.
I could speak, I could do things, and I don't need to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't like somebody, I don't like you. But being a permanent, you, like, as I said, like, you want to maintain it. It's not just only you. There is more. It's like being in a family. It's not like you cannot just be an individual.
What I always think of when I think about like doing contract work is the concept of having more than one client at any given time. Now, obviously, when you're working for a company, yes, you're working on multiple projects, but it's all kind of data for that one company, and you get very familiar with that data. I can't wrap my head around how I would even manage. I mean, I'm sure I would actually. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I completely fail. But to work on separate contracts for different companies and think, okay, now I'm working on this company's data and this is how that's structured. And then the next day or whatever, the afternoon, I'm not sure how it works, you go to a different set of data. So, okay, that's how this looks. That would kill me. That sounds complex.
Yeah. So, and being a consultant, that's also same. Like, you work with so many different clients, so much different data, different things. And again, I feel like I'm keep referring to Chris Webb here, but like a long time ago, Chris told me, but I think I was working for some finance data, and I was like a bit worried about something, and I was discussing about this thing with him, and he said, every data, as long as you look at it as data, it's just data. Whatever the company you're working with, you have a use case and you have data, and that's it. Like, it could be finance company or thing, but at the end of the day, they either want to do sum or account or average or rank. It doesn't matter what business you're working with.
It's true. It's more, and I think this is maybe more to what Bernard is saying there as well, is I can rely on the quality of the structure and the quality of the data at my company, because we've got a really great team, really good setup. But if you're working with a company and there are like inherent issues that they have there, and okay, in this company, I'm sure it happens sometimes, as Bernard mentions, it's just a bit of a nightmare situation, and you got lots of, I'm not sure, like Excel sources or that type of stuff to go. I mean, it presents, I'm sure it can make it interesting because it presents different challenges, which, as you said, kind of keeps you learning and stuff. But yeah, exactly. To see some train wrecks and to see some beautiful systems. And I always get the thought that, and this could be completely wrong, so of course feel free to correct me, that those who would need an external contractor, or maybe those who are more likely to have something closer to a train wreck than this really beautiful setup. I might be wrong.
I have to say you're wrong, being a consultant.
That's fair. I love it. Just straight to the point now. That's garbage, man.
But I think it's it's also the thing is like people have their day job. Like I worked in an organization. They were like a really smart people doing some. They got recruited to do some really smart things in the organization, but they were working on this Excel file, which was taking a lot of time of theirs to make these smart decisions. And that's when we went in and we created the Power BI model. We automated the stuff, and we gave the key metrics that they could see to make these smart decisions. And here I'm talking about like a really, I mean, at least for me, I found them really smart people. They went to smart, fancy universities in the UK. And so that's the thing. It's like for them, because they have other job to do and they cannot do consulting. So I think that's when the consultant comes pretty good. But I think this is where I would also say like having a freelancer and having a consulting firm makes a difference, is because consulting firm is a bit more organized and things like that. But as a freelancer, if you're getting somebody like me previously, and I will be there for a week or 2 weeks and I will quickly do something and I'm off. But at least with the consulting firms, you'll have support and things. So yeah.
It's always it's sometimes like it's a concern if you have someone in a consultant company come in for an extended period of time and they're very good at what they do and they become increasingly vital to that team. But then of course they're going to leave at some point. It's such a worry to have that knowledge just disappear.
That's actually that's very true. I think and that happens quite a lot as well. But again, it's one of those things, is like many organizations choose contractors over permanent sometimes, is because there is no budget dependency. The same thing goes to consulting firm. It's like you could take the support from them as long as you need, and sometimes if you don't have the budget, then you could say bye and it won't impact. Of course you lose the knowledge, but I think that's where a firm could be smart and make sure like all the knowledge is not saved in somebody's head.
Documentation, right? Because we're so good at that.
Documentation. But who reads documentation?
Oh, every day. I wake up and I think, I'm going to read some documentation. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm pretty sure.
Though that being said, I decided just yesterday or this morning that I really did actually want to read the documentation for Deneb, because I've been
hearing a lot about it.
I've been doing a lot of work with it, like creating visuals, but I was saying, okay, now I need to read the documentation so I can, if anyone asks me questions like about the limitations, I can't just say, oh, well, I can provide you a link to the documentation so you can read it yourself. To actually have that, because I don't, I just kind of, I'm going to create some nice visualizations and create some, but I need to start getting down documentation.
It's so my colleague Andy Murphy, he is like a huge Deneb fan.
Cool.
He has been talking about it. I really have to spend some time to work on it, to see what it can do and like actually play with it.
It's good fun. Have you used Charticulator at all?
I have.
I thought so.
And I actually did. I think I did create pretty okay stuff on the Charticulator.
Okay.
But I heard from Andy that Deneb is much more nicer than Charticulator. So
that's actually why I asked, because I find it really interesting now, because these conversations are kind of starting to creep up, like Deneb versus Charticulator, the standard like versus questions, and which is fine. I mean, it means that we have choice, right? And having choice is always a wonderful thing. I'm in no way, no position to answer that question, because I've used Charticulator like twice. And I did that whole thing. I was like, I'm going to create something, and I opened it and I tried, and I was like, I'm bad at this. And then I stopped. I said, okay, I'm going to practice, and I'm going to really go back into it, and I'm going to really learn so I can create something cool. And then went back into it again. And I was like, I still don't like this. So I stopped. And with Deneb, it was the opposite. I kind of immediately just liked it, but I
Mhm.
think it just depends on how you learn and what you're kind of used to. Sometimes something just resonates with you, just clicks.
Yeah. I think it's
Um,
also Deneb is a bit more code
yeah,
oriented
yeah,
compared to Charticulator is a bit more visual oriented. But I think I do like Charticulator. It's quite
yeah.
nice, but it's does I was telling to somebody like it's like Power Apps. It's
Mm,
like Power
okay.
Apps is nice. It's easy until it's easy, and then it gets really complicated.
It's easy
So
until it's not, right?
yeah. So I think it's the same thing with the Charticulator as well.
Mm.
And sometimes it's also not. It's a bit you expect something and it does something different, and you don't.
Okay.
So like yeah, at least that's my experience. That
It
yeah.
happens. Like I just noticed that Sandeep has mentioned GitHub, which has just triggered me because I also do not understand GitHub. I'm so bad at it. I'm so bad.
Yeah.
I I feel like nothing makes me feel as stupid as GitHub does, because everyone's like using it. Oh, like I've got a pull request, and then I've something that's gone like I don't know all these terminology, and I'm like I just want to like have GitHub, and I want to put some like code in there and like store it there, and I can't even do that. I'm like, where's the button to like store something?
Yeah, every time I have to look for the download option, and
Every
it's just like a yeah. That's the GitHub is probably one thing which made me feel old. It's like everyone who talks about GitHub, it's just like why can't I get it? It's
yeah,
like yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, I given up on it.
Someone, I think, in the is it the Stuttgart user group did a session on GitHub for beginners or something, which
Okay.
I really, really want to watch because I refuse to be defeated by a website. Okay, and I did rage delete my GitHub account, and
Oh,
then
really?
yeah,
Okay.
and then the next day I went back and I created a new one because like no, this cannot happen. I cannot be defeated by GitHub. And
Yeah.
then I'm googling like GitHub alternatives, and I was I think this is not gonna.
I think it's a great thing
Yeah,
when you wanted to share publicly and all those
yeah,
things. But yeah, I'll
it's
get
fun.
there.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Rishi. It was Matthias Stiebach. He did his session on
Mm.
Git recently, so that's what I was referring to. That's what I'll watch. So at some point, I'll be less furious every time I want to do this sort of thing. And I know it's me. I know it's. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the site. It's just me. I just don't comprehend it, and that's what it comes down to, really. So one day, I'll get there.
Yeah,
Aye.
well, me too. One day.
Yeah, well, I'll forward you the video if you have time to watch it. But that's the thing. There are so many things to learn, right? You got to say, okay, I'm going to learn this, and it's about picking directions and what interests
Exactly.
you.
Yeah, I rather learn about that than GitHub.
I agree with that decision, and it's because you learn something. And it's not like you learn it and then like, oh, I've learned that. I'm now good at that. I can stop learning it. No, like
Yeah,
I will have to keep learning this forever.
that's true. And also, it's not about only just learning, but like how often you're going to use it.
Yeah,
Also makes the thing.
exactly.
So at least for me, I don't actually come across use GitHub that much. Uh,
For me, honestly, and I'm sorry to tell you this because you just mentioned you want to learn it, it's only because of Vega Lite and Deneb. It's the
oh, is
only.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm
Right.
sorry to
Now I
upset
have
you.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to store because I don't really. Again, I said before, I don't have a coding background, right? So I really don't have other than like HTML when I was like 16, which was an upsettingly long time ago. So no code matter. So now it's like I'm in the situation where I want to store some stuff. So I go to GitHub and I can't do it. I had the idea that it would be really cool if I could use SharePoint as like an open website, which you can't do anymore. You used to be able to do, but you can't do it anymore. And I was like, it's
Yeah.
like the universe is against me here.
Security. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. GitHub, GitLab, and there's also Bernard's told me also already about GitHub Desktop, which is meant to be easier. And I opened that and I was like, yeah, I don't understand this either. I've got to do a pull request, and I've now got to Google what a pull request is. And then you Google what a pull request is, then you got to Google the next word. And okay, I'm already like 4 Googles in, and it's just the second sentence. So it's a lot,
Yeah, that sounds misery.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? It's at one point I look back and think, ha, I was so foolish back then. I can do it all now.
You're
Probably
grown up
not.
now.
Yeah, exactly. What about other stuff in Power BI? Your DAX and M and Power Query, other elements other than the
And the
visualizations.
UI. I actually do
Okay.
everything. I just get
Yeah.
acknowledged more for UI, but,
Okay. Yeah.
but I think I do all the things in Power BI.
You're like on the verge of being a Power BI unicorn.
Oh, what is Power BI unicorn?
I was speaking to someone about this. It was like the concept of someone who has a good understanding of every aspect of Power BI, like the admin side and the security side, and who was it I was speaking to about this? Greg. I forgot his surname. Is it Greg? Yeah, I'm so bad with surnames. Sorry. But it was so basically someone who has a good background and a good understanding of every kind of aspect of Power BI, and it's a really cool name because unicorn just sounds nice, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think well, then yes, I am a Power BI unicorn.
there you go.
Yeah, because
You can
I
stick that in
do.
your LinkedIn.
Yes, I have to put that one there.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, for me, I just I stick with the I think of all the aspects of Power BI that are considered the key aspects. Totally unicorn list. There you go.
Rishi would be the top of the unicorn list.
Exactly. There you go.
What do you
See.
say, Rishi?
Say again.
And I'm wondering, like, what Rishi says for
Yeah,
that.
she agrees with that.
Uh,
That's the
named PPI unicorns doesn't exist. Come on, Rishi. We just mentioned I'm
yeah.
the PPI unicorn.
You got to believe in yourself, you know.
Yeah.
I think of all the aspects of Power BI which I feel progresses for me the least, which I have the slowest learning curve, is most definitely DAX, and it's not intentional. Like I'll happily dig into Power Query and learn some M and stuff, and I like DAX because I have to. It's right there. You can't. I mean, you can dislike DAX, but if you do, then tough, right? But the learning curve it's not as steep a curve with DAX than it is anything else. I just kind of felt I feel like I have a lifetime of just having to Google it all the time and not ever actually take it into my head. It's an interesting
The
thing.
DAX.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yes, everyone says DAX is complex. I think probably it is complex. But it's also like you don't really have to write complex DAX all the time. It's very rare
No.
you have to write complex DAX. So
Yeah.
the general DAX is not complex.
I fully agree with that. And I really enjoy when people say things like that because I don't think people say that sort of thing very often. People always focus on the complexity of DAX. And I look at some of the DAX that other people have written and I'm like, why did you have to write that? What are you working with? This is, I find it astonishing because I really think like a very high percentage, like 95% of DAX is just pretty straightforward. And, I'm always banging on about, get good, create your good data model. Your Power Query can, a conditional column within Power Query can make your DAX so much easier. Fully agree with that. But again, I see some people's DAX and I'm like, I'm sure it's required, but if ever I had to look, I would be really interested to see the data model or whatever, because it's astonishing. I mean, truly.
Yeah, well, I believe like writing DAX is easier than looking at DAX. It's like if you are right,
Fair point, yeah.
seriously, like you could just write something and then it's okay if it works. Well, if it works, it works. But like when you have to go back and troubleshoot DAX, that's when I feel it's a lot more complex than just writing a DAX expression.
I'm not sure this is a good place to admit this, in case at some point in any point in history, someone from my company listens to what I'm about to say. I have DAX in one of my reports at work, and I refuse to put this calculation into any other report because it won't work. It only works, and I look back now, I'm like, I don't understand how it works. I know that it does. And I had another report where I brought in exact same data in exactly the same way, structured in the same way, and I did the same calculation. It doesn't work. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this calculation now only belongs in that report for the rest of our company's history.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
I've done DAX training by SQL BI, like a classroom
Okay.
training with Alberto. Like they had the advanced one as well. And I remember, like, I still complain to Alberto saying, like, "Oh my God, I don't remember anything from the class anymore because I don't use it that much anymore as well."
Of course.
So, yeah.
It's
But
like my
that's the thing. Like, I do write DAX all the time, but I don't write the complex DAX.
yeah. No, I think it's this. I'm gonna say it's similar to me in Python. I did a Python course, like I think it was a week, so nothing intense, but it was quite a few hours I put into it, and then I left that course and I never wrote another line ever, and now it's zero.
You forget if
Yeah,
you don't use it.
yeah.
Well, it comes to you when you actually, if you come across
It's
it again.
it's like any language. Just like when I learned French in school for 6 years, and now I don't know any. Well, I know like maybe like 10 words of French because I started to speak German, and all the French just disappeared. My brain did this thing. I've got such a basic brain, right? And my brain seems to have this thing. It's like English, and I think it's better now, English and all other foreign languages. So I like grouped them. And I remember when I was learning German, I couldn't think of the German word for potato, which in German is quite an important word because Germans and potatoes, which is Kartoffel. And I was just thinking, I was standing up in my head, I was like, patatas? Is that German? And which I think is like Spanish for potato or something. And I don't know how my head got there. It just thought, okay, it's not English. It's not English. Therefore, pick a word. And then that's how it ended up. So I think I do with all language, be it written or coded. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's for me. It's like because I was born in a different country, a country where there are so many languages. So I know a few
Stimmt,
languages in India, and then sometimes here, I like now I feel like I'm not really fluent in English, neither my own language. It's because
okay.
because I don't speak like every day. I don't speak Telugu all the time. So it's like sometimes when I'm explaining, I kind of jump into English to explain because it gets easier.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a bit interesting how our brain works.
For sure. Yeah, there's this. I mean, obviously, my German is even as close as good as your English is, but you do feel like you have like you're not learning one language fast enough, but you're forgetting another language too quickly. So you're
Yeah.
kind of stuck in this middle, and then I'll be speaking in English to someone, and I'll like forget like like I was speaking to a friend a while ago, and I forgot the word for like roller coaster, and I was like, that thing that just kind of like goes round, and people like,
I know the feeling. It happens to me many
very
times.
strange, very
Yeah.
strange.
I just
Anyway,
I just
sorry.
see Christian in the comments, who was also in the same session with me in
Sorry, yeah.
Alberta. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
really. It was a great session, though. It was like there was so much content, there was so much learning, but it was like it was 5 days training, and on the third day we kind of like, oh my God, it's way over our head.
it's really difficult with trainings because you have to get it just right, because it's always like a lot. Like, I'll do these like intro to Power BI courses, which, is not, for us, it's like not complex, but it's a new topic. And you can see after a while, like when the eyes like start to glaze over, it's like when you get at that point, like nothing more is going to go in. It's better just kind of stop and say, okay, let's just leave it there. And any more information is just going to like not help anyone at all. So yeah, training courses
Yeah.
are tough to get a balance, but to do a DAX course with any one of the two Italians would be quite a wonderful thing.
I mean, like seriously, I still sit in whenever there is a session by them. I do go and sit in there, and I always learn something new all the
sure.
time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that no one can teach better than,
Yeah.
well, at least I'm sure there's many other people who could also teach, but yeah,
I
I like it.
think it's also a level thing as well. Sometimes I'll read something or watch something by SQLBI, and I feel like I need to start at like a more basic level. So and then once I've read like a couple of paragraphs or a basic blog, then I can go back and watch one of their videos, because when they explain, they do it very well, but sometimes they go into a level of complexity that I would really need a kind of like an idiot's guide, before I kind of can really understand it to the level to which they are trying to explain it to, you know.
Yeah.
But we have so many resources that it's very easy to do that. I gotta say, this comment from Jeff is something that I do feel quite often. Basically, that Microsoft will spend a lot of time trying to make DAX simpler, and yeah, the fir-
No.
the first part of that is because I sometimes worry that I'm going to spend a lot of time in to DAX, and they're going to change something dramatically, and it's like, oh no,
No,
I've
I
wasted so
don't
much
think.
time.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Nah, we'll see.
Like, I was telling somebody today actually, is she was talking about like how she's familiar with SSIS but not Power Query, and then I was saying, like, all these things are same, just different tools.
Yeah.
Like, as I mentioned, like, how the different data, all the data is same except different business. At least for the business, the story is different, but like the same thing goes with the DAX or MDX or VBX or all these things. Is like it's it's the problem solving
Mm.
skill
Yeah.
is the important. You write a stored procedure or you write a Power Query. At the
Mm.
end of the day, what you want to do is a join. So that's how I look at it. It's like, things will change,
Yeah,
but
it's true. Very
what's going
true.
to change is at the end of the day, we're going to work with the data, but probably different way,
Yeah,
different tools.
very, very good point. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
but at least that's what I tell myself.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll stick with it as well. Let's leave it on that very good point. I've taken it over the 10 minutes, over the 45 that I promised you. I do apologize for that.
It's all right. It was a good chat.
I was probably doing some rambling. It happens. But yeah, really, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. It was nice to get to know you, because we don't have a huge amount of interaction on Twitter. So it was nice to meet you and have a chat and discuss what you're about and all these topics that always come up. Everyone in the chat, thank you very much for getting involved and for asking all the questions and making all the comments and making us laugh along the way. It's always good fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to be part of it. Thank you so much for asking. And yeah, I'm not super active on Twitter. I do a bit, but not a lot. So yeah.
Fantastic. Then take care, everyone, and I'll be back next Thursday. And